Okay, all right. So this is part two of the three rules of transforming conflict. Um, Check out the other video. This one will make sense on its own, probably. The reason I'm talking about this right now, soon after the election in the United States, is that I have a sense that most people are ready to try to improve the way that we do conflict. And I really want to make the message that we have better ways. And part of what I'm going to do right now is just like talk about like what the three ways that we can transform our conflicts are. And hopefully that'll maybe inspire us to think about how we can make some upgrades in the next time. So the three rules of conflict, just to remember from before. First of all, the first rule of conflict is about content, and it is that the conflict is usually not about what it's about. You have to figure out what it's really about. It's going to help you a lot. Rule two was that everyone who's involved in the process is going to have to be involved in the, everyone who's involved in the conflict is going to have to be involved in the process. And that's about relationships. So if you don't feel comfortable involving them, then you're going to have to do some relationship building. People skills. So the third rule of conflict, it's about process. And it says that the outcome of a conflict transformation process and the process of getting there are actually the same thing. Now, what do I mean by that? So the qualities that are in whatever your process, those will inherently be reflected in whatever the outcome that you're going towards is. We talk about like ends and means and like, do the ends justify the means? Now that could maybe work in a very short-term thing, but for the most part, when you're in a conflict transformation process, like you're already starting to, you're basically starting to like create the world that you want to live in. As soon as you decide like, let's do this differently. Let's make a change or let's make a decision. Like you're already laying the groundwork for whatever that next reality is going to be. So the qualities that you have in that process will like kind of be built in to whatever you're creating. And you can't really change course later on. So if you want the outcome to be inclusive and be something that everyone's on board with, then you're going to have to make sure you have a process that's inclusive and that everyone's on board with. It seems basic, but it's really important. If you want that final outcome to address those like deep needs, the things that everyone cares about and everyone agrees are important, that content, then you're going to have to make sure you're addressing that content from the very beginning. You kind of can't just like, there's no switcheroo going on here. Another thing you can think about with your process is like, is your process set up for someone to win or someone to lose? It's a no-win situation if you do that, because the people who lose, they're not going to like it, and they're going to come back, and they're going to be another process, and they're going to try to win the next time, and then you're going to lose. It's like you can't have a win-lose process and like create a sustainable outcome. And again, you can go back to the other rules, but basically, whoever loses, they're going to figure out how to involve themselves on their own terms. So it's going to be an ongoing thing. And I think that's the next part that's like worth remembering, that like the outcome isn't actually just going to be like a fixed state. Like the outcome of this election, and we know this because we've gone through this before, is not like the votes happen and we tally them and then we know who won and everything's done. We have it all figured out. We know what the answers are. No, this is going to be going on for as long as we're alive, and we want to keep on being alive for a long time. And so what's worth remembering is that the outcome is actually just a new process. Like the process of getting to the outcome just like opens up into a new way of being in a relationship. So maybe you come to some agreements, but then there's going to be a new phase, and that's going to create its own issues. And so that brings us to the fourth of the three rules of conflict. And the fourth of the three rules of conflict is there is not going to be a final outcome. Now that's a hard pill to swallow sometimes. It just seems like it wouldn't be so great if we just like got to the end, everything was finished, and we can all just agree or something like that. Now, if you think about it though, we don't, whatever the end is, we don't want to get there any faster than we have to. We don't want to see what the end of our country looks like. We don't want to see like the time where everyone agrees. Like, I think people have tried fascism before. We don't want to do that. So we want to continue to be living in our diversity, continue to be, like juggling all these different amazing American ways of being. And we're going to continue to be in relationship with each other. So the question then becomes not what do we want to see happen, but how do we want to see it happen, or how do we want to talk about it? So what that means is like, you can get a piece of legislation passed. Like, well, this is a current or, example, Roe versus Wade. There was like a decision and someone decided this is what's what the rights are about abortion and women's rights and and so forth. But then we know that like that's going to continue to change and that people are going to push back against it. Any piece of law or any sort of like agreement that you come to can still be changed. Obviously we've been amending our Constitution for forever, and so there's not going to be like some fixed state. So it's not like the laws are ever going to get perfect. It's not like we're all ever going to agree with each other. And it's definitely, we don't want to get to the end of whatever this American experiment democratic journey is. So we're in the process. And so that's fine. And so this is where we can start thinking about how do we want to be in relationship with each other. So some of those things are just like basic process things. Now, there are really great tools. And so I'm like in this field of conflict transformation or conflict engagement, conflict resolution, mediation, facilitation, whatever you want to call it. And there are so many rad tools. Now, whether it's a group of people trying to figure out something or just two people or groups trying to figure out something between each other, like we've got the tools for that. And if you find yourself in a conflict, like find a facilitator, find a mediator. We've totally got you. There's also ways that we can create amazing deliberative processes that will actually move people towards consensus. I want to give a shout out to convergent facilitation, to dynamic facilitation. There's some amazing, there's also ways that we can have people in dialogue with each other that that actually just helps us affirm each other's humanity. It can sort of address that sort of relationship issue. Like you don't have to agree with each other, but you can actually just understand each other. And that can move things forward a lot. There's some amazing restorative processes where we can actually like heal deep wounds by restoring the relationships and having just like real honest conversations. And this is transformative for everyone. So if there's been harm, we have ways of dealing with that. There's also ways of just like having processing, complex issues. Think about what would happen if instead of like the presidential debates that we just had, that instead we took those like same 10, 15 topics, that like everyone really cares about. And remember, the reason why we all care about politics is because these are important things we need to talk about. What if instead of these two guys having 2 minutes each to just debate about the thing and try to make sure that their like solution to like some massive issue is going to be just explained in a couple sound bites? What if instead we had a leader, a collection of like 15, 20 leaders in the government or wherever, like actually in a dialogue that was being facilitated? And just if over the course of a day or a couple days, we could actually get them to come to some sort of consensus. Now that sounds far out, but that's actually totally possible. And again, like those of us in my field, we do this kind of thing all the time. So, like when I think about what's going on in our world right now, it's like I have hope because I think that people are actually ready to try some new ways of being in conversation with each other. And that people actually do want to come up with like good decisions that we can all get behind about how we want to build a world for all of us. I've been told this is a little Pollyanna-ish, but I'm committed to spreading this word and making sure that people know that these kinds of things are possible. Check it out. And like, let's think about this, and let's stop putting up with this like divisive system that's pitting us against each other and creating winners and losers and making us sort of believe that someone's gonna like that we're ever gonna be separating from each other. And honestly, if we don't figure this out, we're in big trouble. Like, we have to like figure this out soon. And so my hope is that over the next time, that people who are ready to see change happen will actually start demanding the change can happen, and will actually start doing it. If you want to learn more about this, or you like think that this sounds like a good idea, I would start by coming to the DPACE initiative. That stands for Democracy, Politics, and Conflict Engagement. Again, it's like a rad team of people that I'm working with there. And we also have a framework, a conflict literacy framework that sort of breaks down like all these different tools that are available to us. And that's at dpaceinitiative.org. That's DPACE initiative.org. And yeah, or you can find me, DuncanAudrey.com. I'll put all the links in the video notes here. Thank you for watching, and let's do this, people. Let's make this a better world in a way that we all want to be in it. We'd totally be so great if we were like all addressing our deep underlying issues, if we were doing it in a way that was inclusive, and we were in a process that we knew was going to be ongoing, and we were just getting better and better and better at it. Doesn't that sound fun? Thank you for watching.